Hi good people, welcome to my channel where we do hard things because we are no longer slaves to fear. Today's conversation is not going to be any different because I am going to talk about addiction. Addiction is a topic that is very sensitive to me because it affects me at a very personal level. So join in as we talk about it, and I am going to focus on how addiction affects you, especially when you are not the user. So welcome, take a cup of tea and or coffee and sip as you listen in. So just a little background. We know that there are very many types of addiction. You could be addicted to food, you could be addicted to pornography, sex, you could be addicted to technology, the internet. There are so many things that could make you be addicted. And when you talk about addiction, we mean overindulgence, something that you cannot keep your mind from, you cannot restrain yourself from doing. That is addiction. Things that negatively affect you. You just can't stop. You have to do it to feel okay or to satisfy a certain part of you. But today I am going to focus on drug and substance abuse, including alcohol, because that is what I have witnessed. It is what has affected me. And from a very young age, I have witnessed most of my family members struggle with this addiction, and up to my adulthood, there's in so many ways it has affected me. Some I did not realize until now, or it's a hard journey for anyone to go through. So the first way that it affects you is there's high emotional stress. This thing will give you stress. First of all, because their behavior is highly unpredictable. You do not know what are they going to do next, what are they going to say. They have mood swings. 1 minute they're angry, 1 minute they're withdrawn, another minute they're depressed, and some of these people get suicidal. You don't know how to help them. Their decision making is very irrational. You get someone wants to jump out of a moving vehicle, you wonder why. They disappear for days or weeks without communication. And that is the reason why for most of my life I have always received calls from new numbers, because there's that thought, what if it's them? What if they need my help? You're constantly living in fear and anxiety. There's just no new number that will pass you, because what if that is the one call that is going to save them? They have behaviors that are highly unacceptable, especially socially, and you don't know what to do. There's your stress after stress, especially when you're a parent. You're living under stress all the time because you're kind of carrying the burden of your child. You don't know what they're going to say to that stranger. They can't keep a job. They can't do their own cleaning. There's so many things that they're not able to do. And it affects you so much. The second thing is that you grieve. When you live with people who are addicted, you grieve. You grieve even when they're still alive, because you're grieving the people that they used to be. Because now they've changed. They're not the people who they were. They're not those nice people. Maybe you cannot relate in the same way. And you grieve the people they were going to become. Especially when they had a lot of potential. You look at them and you're like, oh my God, you could have made a great something, a great somebody. And you mourn that, you grieve that so much. You grieve the lost relationships, because now they can't be the best sister, they can't be the best brother, they can't show up in that capacity because their mind is focused somewhere else. And you grieve that loss. there's so much mourning. You grieve because you don't know. You're always living in fear, waiting for the worst to happen. Will they one day show up dead? So you're kind of grieving all these things. You receive phone calls and you're like, oh my God, I hope this is not the day. And then once you hear what it is, like, oh, finally, it's not that. But you're grieving. And I remember there's a time I even got books about grief because I felt like I had lost so much. I couldn't believe that this is what they have become. It is so hard, especially when it's the people you love most, the people closest to you. You grieve, you mourn. And even with every relapse, you're like, oh my God, not again. There's those episodes where you keep going back to mourning. Because again, you don't know when they'll be okay. They're okay for some period of time, they're not okay again. It's just a whole roller coaster. And it just can't stop. It takes a lot of grace. It takes a lot of perseverance and just to not grieve, but you're grieving. We grieve. There's also a lot of shame and embarrassment, especially because of how they behave. You're afraid to even introduce them to your friends, to your partners, because you're worried, hey, what will they say? When they're drunk, they just spit out things that are not acceptable. Sometimes you even stop going to these functions because you think, I cannot go with them. They might go get drunk and do all these things that will embarrass you. Feel embarrassed on their behalf, and there's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes you even find yourself apologizing before when you meet people. You're like, hey, by the way, they do this and this, so in case that happens, please understand. You find yourself going ahead of yourself sometimes, which is a little unfair to them because it is not all the time that they will be that person. But because you're of that stigma, the shame, the embarrassment, you're like, I'm so sorry, in case this happens, please understand that it is because of this and this and this. So there's a lot of shame that surrounds addiction, a lot of stigma. It's even hard for me to have conversations about it to my friends. I'm like, hey, this thing, will they really understand? Most people do not understand, and until it affects you at a very personal level, you might not understand. Talk about the financial strain that it puts the family under. You use a lot of time to help them be okay, a lot of resources, maybe for medication, for rehab. There's a lot of financial strain, and you wonder this money could have been used for something else, to help other people who will actually use that money or that opportunity. And sometimes you get so angry because why do we have to keep neglecting some of our needs because we have to take care of those needs, your needs, because of your own doing? And it takes a lot of understanding to sometimes acknowledge that these particular needs come first. They need the medication, they need the rehabilitation. Other things can wait. Their well-being is the priority. It takes a lot of understanding and a lot of love to accept some of these decisions. Something else is there is a lot of self-blame. I have found myself I have beaten myself up so many times because I wonder, did my actions enable their behavior? What should I have done? Could I have done it in a better way? Should I give them money or should I not? Do I leave them to stay hungry or give them this money and then I don't know, whatever will happen will happen? Do I let them starve, or do I just go and cook for them so that they know that they have to be responsible? There's a lot of self-blame. It's very hard, the line between enabling them and supporting them, very thin. Sometimes you need a professional to actually lead and guide you, to tell you this behavior is enabling, you're enabling this person, and this is how you should support them. Sometimes you don't know, you're like, hey God, please take control, because it's very hard. You want to help them, you want to give them tough love, you don't want to over pamper them. So there's a lot of self-blame. I'm sure there's so many nights I have cried wondering, God, am I doing the right thing? Did I miss an opportunity to save them? God, show me, what did I do wrong? What do I need to do better? A lot of self-blame. And sometimes you find yourself that you need to cover up for their bad behavior, because if you don't, there is violence. There will not be peace in that house. So you kind of think, okay, they have done a bad thing, but then if I say they've done this, we will all not sleep. So you're covering up for wrong behavior. But you are at a point where you feel like, I have no choice, I have to do this. So this self-blame game, that line between enabling and support, is very difficult. And then, of course, as I've mentioned, when people are addicted to drugs and substance abuse, to alcohol, there's a lot of violence. Start from verbal, emotional, physical, all types of abuse. I have experienced it, and it's not good. I remember sometimes I used to sleep with my hands on my ears, because I do not want to hear the shouting. I do not want to hear all the things that are being said. I just used to sleep and say, God, please, I just need to sleep right now. I do not want to hear. Sometimes I had to sleep with my earphones, listening to worship music, because it is peaceful. You do not want, because ukitoa hizo earphones, my friend, just sleep with your earphones and music on. That was comfort to me. Sometimes I found myself physically separating fights, bad fights, dangerous fights, because people are on the high. They don't know what they're doing. They want to satisfy their needs. So as the people around who are sober, regardless of who's on the right or wrong, you need peace. So I've had to separate fights, and it's not a pretty sight. It's not nice. And again, you feel like, hey, am I even safe in this house? Because their emotions are so high, they might do anything. You're wondering, hey, am I safe? You know it will definitely wear off when they're sober, but when they're not sober, you don't feel safe. Sometimes you have to literally go and hide just in your bedroom and just do your things, totally ignore and shut them out. Because when you start engaging with them, then hell breaks loose. And as a child, I used to think that, but then I told you that I went to boarding school from a very young age, and I used to wonder, why did I have to go from such a young age? I was so young. I think I was 8 years old, or I was so young. But sometimes again, I'm like, maybe God did it as a design to protect me, because now in school I did not have to witness all these things. School, all you think about is your studies, food, a little manual here, there, and that's it. No violence, no all this drama, there's nothing. And in school now, I was able to curate my own values. I was able to now start saying, okay, this is what I need. I was able to pick up values that I would want for myself. But when you're in that environment where there's constant abuse, constant negativity, a lot of negativity, And as a child, remember, you do not know how to manage or control what you feel or what goes into your subconscious mind and all that. So over the years, you find that you pack up a lot of anger and resentment. You have this love and hate relationship for your loved ones, because you ask, why do they keep doing the very same thing that they see is destroying us? Don't they see that you've used a lot of money to help them? Don't they just see? Can they just stop? Of course, when you're addicted, it's hard to stop. And sometimes you ask yourself, can't they just accept? Because I can tell you for a fact that when a person who's addicted has not come to a place of acceptance, it is very difficult to rehabilitate them. Unless they personally decide that this thing is difficult for me. Actually, the first thing is not even to stop. I normally say that the first thing is just to accept, by the way, I have a problem. I have a problem. Please help me. If you see me going to drink, it's because I have a problem and you need to help me. But when you find a person who is, I don't have a problem, so many of you drink, so what's my problem? If you do not accept, it's very hard. So you find yourself, we are constantly in this cycle of trying to help them, they relapse. It's a very hard and difficult journey. And in a setup where you find that the parents are abusing drugs, you find that at some point the children now also start abusing these drugs, because what example are you showing? All your life you've been abusing these drugs. So even your child will is asking you how, but you're also doing the same. How are you telling me not to do this when you're still doing the same? They have grown up seeing you abusing these drugs. They've seen all the terrible things that have come as an effect. And of course, you think that it will change you in a positive way, but for some, it makes their children also addicts, because that is what they've grown to know. They've seen, our parents, when they were stressed, they used to go and drink alcohol. Even them, when they get to that point in life where they feel stressed, they're like, hey, let me go and try this alcohol. It must be nice. So you see, the patterns keep being repeated. And as I said, there's a lot of anger that you build up over the years. Sometimes you blame them for the lack of relationship between you two. Because, remember, first of all, there's no trust. These are not the kind of people you will open up to, because you might do that, and then when now they're drunk and they're high, now they will start saying all these things. They will start reacting to whatever you told them in confidence. So you imagine, I come and tell you, by the way, I am struggling with this and this and this, or my friend did this and this, and then when you're drunk, you start saying, Bilia, you mean to say this is what is happening? You mean to say this and this and this and this? And you're like, oh my goodness, I told you that in confidence. And remember, one thing that you should realize is that people say, at least I have heard people say, and I've read it, that people are their most honest when drunk. So whatever they say while drunk, be rest assured, even if they're not in control, it is what they truly feel. So they say so many hurtful things, and you take a step back and ask yourself, my goodness, is that what you really think about this? So you kind of cut them off in terms of sharing your personal life with them. So there's a lot of anger. Like, if you were not in this cycle of addiction, maybe you would have had a better relationship as a parent to child. You look at how other people have such nice relationships and you wish, oh my goodness, I wish I had that, but because of this thing, this addiction, we cannot have that. We just can't have that. And there's a lot of confusion because growing up, there's a lot of display of affection, and then there's a lot of chaos, lot of love, a lot of chaos. And so you're left wondering, is this what a family should look like? What are the values that I should pick up? What are some of the things that I shouldn't do? You get yourself so confused. So confused. At some point I remember saying, if this is what marriage is, I do not want it. If this is what addiction in marriage is, I do not want it ever. As fate would have it, I feel like I am a lover girl. I love to be loved, and I want to love people. There's so much love within me that I feel like I need to give to the world. So instead of having that perspective, I told myself I will work towards being an excellent person. And again, sometimes you struggle with this perfection because you do not want the same cycles repeated. Now you put your standards so high that again it becomes a problem. But yes, you want to be an excellent person. You want to be different. It cannot be the same as how it was, as what you've witnessed. It just cannot be the same. It has to be better. And that is why I love saying that I want to be a person of excellence, whether be it in relationships, be it in my work. I want to have values that will steer me towards these things. I want to be joyful, to be happy. I used to hold so much anger, and I used to be a sad person at some point. I used to think, oh, maybe if they're okay, then you'll be happy. No, happiness is not a destination, obviously. You have to find these pockets of joy, even amidst all this chaos, amidst the addiction. You have to find the beauty in all of it. It's hard, but again, one thing is, it teaches you, it helps you to grow, it helps you to persevere so many things. It hardens you to pass through things in this life. You know that this one I will overcome. Love is a beautiful thing. So you just have to be different, be better. Yeah, we got to be better, we got to be different. As you grow up and you understand how life is, you start to create boundaries. And for myself, I did that. I remember I told myself, first of all, I will not engage in these drugs. And purely not in the sense that it's sweet or not sweet, but on the grounds that there's this negative association that I have with drugs, that I have with alcohol. I know it leads to abuse. I know it leads to broken relationships. So no, I am not going to be part of that. So I told myself I am not going to drink, I am not going to do drugs. I also told myself I'm not going to get partners who are who take alcohol, not necessarily addicts, but who take drugs, simply because I do not want to put myself in a situation where I have to again endure all these things. Because truthfully speaking, people say that, oh, there are those who drink responsibly, but no, I have never seen people who drink and are respectful and say the right things and do not make bad financial decisions. There always has to be something negative with alcohol and these drugs. There has to be something. I have honestly not seen people who just take drugs like tea and then they're okay. So those are some of the things. And I also had to set now boundaries for myself. For example, I told myself that I do not have to wait for abuse to get physical for me to confront the situation or to get to action. Abuse begins with verbal. I told myself that I will not abuse people, And so I will not accept anyone who, or any partner who abuses me verbally. The moment you abuse me, that is the end. Because I know once you start verbal abuse, the next thing is emotional abuse, the next is physical. So why should I wait for all this before I take action? And again, honestly speaking, anyone who abuses you verbally does not respect you. I believe that you can have a conflict or a disagreement in a very respectful way. So no abuse of any kind. And I know sometimes you're not able to, it's not just a matter of I'm done. Especially for some types of abuse like emotional, you might not realize that this person is emotionally abusing you. So you might endure some things thinking that this is normal, because again you're so used to this chaos, you think this is normal. No, it is not normal. That is why we have to educate ourselves, know what is healthy, allow yourself to know what healthy means, and that is also what I'm doing. Learning what is this health, what is a healthy relationship, what is emotional abuse, what is verbal abuse. You have to set boundaries for yourself to protect yourself from all these things. And the other reason why I decided that I do not want partners who do drugs is because you find most of them are very controlling, very manipulative. It's a lot of stress. When you grow up with these people, you will understand, you will see there's no peace with these people. And not to say, I don't know, it's chaos. That's what I know with drugs. It's chaos. But again, now on the flip side of this, some of the things that you say that you don't want, you find yourself having these particular toxic traits. For example, I have found myself shouting at people in situations where I shouldn't have. I say, do not shout at me, but I find myself shouting. And it's not nice, because you've grown up seeing all these things, and then so you have to take a step back and say, oh my goodness, I shouted and it was not nice, I'm sorry. So you also have to be very forgiving. You have to have a lot of grace for yourself, because as much as you want to avoid these things, you will find that you have these toxic traits. There are so many things that you will find yourself having. You find that you have a very high guard. Your antenna is always on alert. And they say sometimes it is a disadvantage to be soberly guarded, because you wonder, hey, what will these people do? Sometimes you have this anxious attachment to people. You're like, what are they going to love me the right way? What if they do this? What if they get violent? What if this and this? Because of addiction, or rather drug and substance abuse. So there are all these things that you have which are negative. And I've also talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That is why I am consciously pursuing self-development. You have to be aware of what is wrong with you, or how you're created, so that, for example, you'll find that because of all these things, they make me very sensitive or easily triggered to certain situations. When someone raises their voice at me, I get very triggered. When particular things happen, I get triggered. When someone does not talk to me, especially, let me say, with addiction, there's a lot of breakdown in communication, and I've seen how that has affected relationships, leading to divorce, separation, leading to violence because of the lack of communication. And I told myself that for a relationship to work, I have to put communication first, and that is one of the reasons that I am also actively pursuing this communication thing. I want to be better at it, because with communication you have to be a better listener. You have to listen to these people. You have to understand their needs without necessarily having to react on the first go. You have to be able to communicate your needs to your partner, lest you will have stress and then find yourself in these cycles of addiction. You have to be able to express yourself clearly and concisely. So I am constantly pursuing self-development. I tell God that just expose all these bad things, because I do not want to take these toxic traits to my future generation. I want to be better, to be a better partner, better sister, a better wife. And these cycles of addiction, I pray that God will break them. But most of all, one thing that I like about this journey is that it makes you more empathetic person, because you get to understand people's struggles. You get to take a step back and think, oh my goodness, this might be the reason behind their behavior. You get to be more understanding and not be very quick to judge. It makes you be very introspective, or rather look within yourself and try to remove the logs that are within you before you start pointing fingers. Because living with these people, it takes a lot out of you. You develop behaviors that are not nice, and before you start saying oh, they did this, realize that we all have our own sort of addictions. I mean, there's a time I used to love sugar so much, and I thought, oh my goodness, this thing it's going to be an addiction. Because I used to be so stressed, I just wanted to eat and eat and eat. I would spend, I would have 1,000 bob between me and poverty, and I'd go and spend all of it. I would not care where I would get the next money from. I'd go to the supermarket, buy chocolate, ice cream, any sugary thing, and then binge on it. I mean, those are other things of addiction. People are addicted to love and relationships. Somebody cannot stay on their own. They feel like they cannot function on their own, and that is absolutely dangerous. You have to be your own anchor. God has to be your only anchor, that is. Because when you peg your stability on people, you will break. You will completely lose it. And now living with these people that are abusing drugs, it shakes your faith. Your faith will be tested. My friends, my faith has been tested. It got to a point I was asking God, really, what is it that you want from us? What do we need to do for all this to end? When are we going to one day get a phone call that it is finished? But I get so much comfort from the Bible, from people like Abraham and Sarah. They waited 100 years to get a child. The crippled man waited 38 years for someone to just put him in the pool so that he could be healed. Remember the woman with blood. It took her 12 or 13 years for her to be healed. And then I look at myself, I'm like, it's only been this year. I'm like, I'm good to go. The journey is still on. I will not give up. That is where I draw my source of comfort, or rather hope. And I used to pray to God that, hey God, please heal them, please God, oh do this. At some point I'm like, hey God, no, whatever your will is, then do it. And if I will not be able to understand your will, I mean, I might not be able to understand your will, but Father, may your will be done. Those are my prayers nowadays. Of course, I pray for them to be healed. It is necessary to do that. But I am also training, or I'm changing the perspective that I see, the lens through which I look at these things. I'm saying, God, if something great has to happen in honor and glory of your name, and because of this situation it will happen, then God, may your will be done. I am learning to take care of myself, because I mean, these stresses will kill you, they will destroy you. So I am learning to let people take responsibility for their actions. I will not always neglect my feelings and put your needs first. I may not always do that because I have to take care of myself. I have to always remind my parents that you need to take care of yourself. People have choices, and with every choice comes a consequence. You start to support them in different ways, and it does get, I will not say that it gets better. I don't know if it ever gets better, because there is still that fear and anxiety. I know God says, do not worry, and for everything with prayer and supplication, present all your needs to me. That is also my source of strength. I'm like, God, take control, because without you it is difficult. I have seen people who have lost their loved ones through addiction. Watch Jackie Vicky's story. She lost her family member. Look at Eric Omondi. Look at what was this other name? Is it Abel Mutua? I'm not very sure. People are going through a lot. They have given up so much to help these people, but sometimes it's just not enough. It's sometimes just not enough. So if you are a person who's been affected by addiction indirectly, know that you are not alone. It will get better. Keep holding on. Keep praying for your loved one. One day they will overcome it. I mean, we've seen so many success stories of people who used to be deep into addiction and they overcame it. I tend to think that people have their turning point. Every person has their turning point. And you can only pray that theirs is closer or theirs is coming. You're not alone. Take care of yourself. Pray to God for strength. It is not easy. Cry if you must, but then pick yourself up, and life has to go on. Be happy, be joyful. Love these people, embrace them, support them. Help others to overcome this. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've learned something. I will continue with this series when we'll see. We can continue with this series on another time. I hope you learned something. And today my prayer is for you to keep holding on, to be better. I'm praying for you to be better in ways that it has affected you. I am praying for you that you heal, that you do not transfer these toxic traits to your generation, that these cycles will be broken. I am praying for you. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely week.